So you're in Colombia, but you're from America. Talk to me about how you got here.
Look, the path here was a pretty crazy path, and also you had a pretty simple path, right? And ironically, there's a lot that led to me here. What led to me to higher global was owning a small supply business when I was 25 and using a technology NetSuite, which was this remote ERP that you could plug in from anywhere. And I couldn't afford the $250 an hour to implement NetSuite. So I went to the Philippines and hired somebody at 15 an hour. That's kind of where I was like, oh yeah, this is a big difference. And from 250 to 15 an hour. And I wasn't the first to outsource. And I most certainly wasn't the first in the global market at that time, right? No way by far. But it was surprising to me because I think people really weren't remote that much then. So they was really like outsourced to the staff. But the person that I hired, to me, didn't feel outsourced because they were my employee and they were just remote employee, right? So I was like, the outsourcing has this bad stigma, but outsourcing usually implies you can outsource in America, right? Like there's probably 7,000 call centers in America. And, if you don't have a lawyer in-house and you do a law firm, you're outsourcing. If you don't have an accountant in-house, you're outsourcing. If you buy SaaS, if you buy Salesforce instead of building a CRM, you're outsourcing. So the word kind of got super tricky, but for me, it felt like remote work, right? And it felt like I was just like, okay, well, if John was in LA, he'd be getting $250 an hour, but Tim, very American names I'm using, was in the Philippines, he's $50 an hour. I guess I didn't really feel like I was getting an ROI because John had to pay $20,000 a year in taxes and 45% to the California government. So I guess I kind of saw the game and just understood that cost of livings are just different. And that's the biggest driver. And then, I think what a lot of Americans understand is that there's a lot of great things about America, right? But two of the greatest things that you get are your blue passport, which 90% of Americans don't even have, and it's sad because other people in other countries have to wait 2 to 3 years just for an appointment to get a visa to visit your country, and so they're not using that. And then another thing is that the dollar's the world currency. We hijacked the world after World War II, and we winners of wars placed in different rules. So we made the dollar the international currency, and it's strong, right? So that strength, that passport strength, and that conversion strength are things that Americans get by being Americans, but they don't really use it as much as they can or should. If that makes sense, right?
Period.
How I got to Colombia was, ironically, I was acting like an SDR when I was in NetSuite because it was very hard for me to be an account executive that had a limited territory that just waited for deals. And I probably could have made $180K from NetSuite doing nothing. They wanted me to do nothing, right? So I was calling and emailing and doing more stuff because I'm hardworking. I just don't know how to be an account executive that just waits for inbound leads. It's just not my nature, right? And I met this leader named Eric Agmon. He was the CEO of a company called Answers on Demand at the time. And he, I gave him, he didn't want to buy NetSuite, but I gave him the truth. I was like, hey man, you're an Israeli CEO. I'm an American Israeli. Maybe there's an opportunity to be my mentor, right? I'd love to be a CEO of a tech company, and you're 56 at the same time, and I met him, and he was more at the time. Hope he's not listening to this. He was more looking at me, being like, there's a young dude. He understands the game of dating, I guess you could say, and he wanted to leverage me for that social network, and I was leveraging him for just leadership and just being a mentor. And he ended up asking me to go to Colombia because he was saying that a lot of people were always asking him to hire developers down there. And at the time, I didn't want to go because I was like, I live in South Beach. I was 30. I understood that I didn't need to party now. I need to work so I could party later. That was how I was backwards. But I went, and then when I flew down here, it was 3 hours away. It was beautiful, gorgeous city. And then I met this guy who works for us still. He's a partner of the company. His name is Daniel Agudelo. He was the hotel manager at the time, and his English was fluent. He lived in South Florida. And I asked him, I go, don't mind me asking, what's a good salary monthly here? And he was like, $800. And I was like, okay, I could probably teach you how to sell software. probably come in as a managed service at around 5K and be cheaper than someone hiring a direct rep, right? Like we were in similar businesses and sales agencies, right? And I decided to move here because I operated a bootstrap startup, right? So I was able to come down here and live off $30,000 a year and have that feel like 120,000, right? I had a penthouse when I moved down here, probably like a 3,000 square foot penthouse in the best part of town for like $1,400, right? And I was just able to like really reinvest all that savings into my company. So it became a no-brainer because I lived in Miami. Everybody spoke Spanish in Miami, and a lot of Colombians anyways. And come down here and it's like the weather's nicer, cost of living is like 1/5. And it just, at the same time, like I kind of felt that when I was out of the States, I all of a sudden saw a different perspective on the world, and I felt a lot of growth, and I felt like I was learning, and I felt like I looked at the game of life a little bit differently. And I know this is a long-winded answer, but I guess how I got down to Colombia was it was taking a vacation with my mentor, and then 6 months later, broke up my girlfriend, and moved. I think I was also too young, a little bit scared to get married at the time. I'll be honest about it. So I was like, this is great. I got an excuse now. And I moved to Colombia 6 months later. I applied to a government program at a Ruta, which was the innovation center. Turned more into like a co-working for me because their innovation was like 10 years behind my innovation. So I was like, you guys can't tell me anything, but you gave me a real good deal on some office. So I got into that program, quickly grew, and just fell in love with the country. And I think that every time I went back to America, I just felt more stress, and I felt more pressure and more of that, like the tension brewing that like you could feel before COVID, and then COVID, it just popped out and people got weird. And then I was back in Miami for COVID, and I just came back to Colombia because I'm just happier here. Yeah, I'm happier here. I'm like, we live in a network state, so I get to like literally, I can message you in real time on WhatsApp and be like, yo, call what's up. We got this. So like, I am literally chatting every day with sales agency owners and people that I admire and respect. So it's like, what am I really losing by physically living in a zone where my cost of living is 75% less? But every day I wake up and I'm talking to sales agency owners and software company owners around the world. So I don't feel like I'm losing anything really. Like maybe I can't go to CVS and I have to go to like some other CVS, which is like, I don't even know what they call it here. They call it like Caruja or something like that. It feels the same to me. Like I go buy my shampoo and it's like, maybe there's like it's a Spanish on it. Like it's all the same stuff, just cheaper.